My mother handed me a gift wrapped in silver paper, and 50 guests leaned in to watch me open it. This was my 10th wedding anniversary party, my home, my celebration. I had spent 3 weeks planning every detail, and now Patricia Rhodes stood before me with that smile I had learned to fear since childhood, the one that promised pain disguised as love. I pulled the ribbon, lifted the lid. Inside lay a faded handkerchief, yellowed at the edges, familiar in a way that made my stomach drop. I recognized it immediately. I had given this exact handkerchief to my mother 3 years ago for Mother's Day. She was returning it to me now, at my own anniversary party, in front of everyone I knew. Patricia's voice rang clear across the silent room. "We thought you deserved something that matched your worth to this family, Victoria. After all, you always did think you were too good for hand-me-downs." Laughter rippled through certain corners of the room. My father Harold chuckled from his position near the fireplace. Some guests shifted uncomfortably, others looked away. I did not cry. I did not scream. I did not run to the bathroom to hide my tears like I had done so many times before. Instead, I reached into my blazer pocket, pulled out my phone, and connected it to the living room television. "Thank you, Mom and Dad." My voice was steady, almost pleasant. "Now let me give you my gift in return." The screen flickered to life. A video began playing, and the temperature in that room dropped 10 degrees. But before I tell you what that video contained, let me take you back 6 hours, to when this evening still had the illusion of being perfect. 2 o'clock that afternoon, I stood in my kitchen watching the catering team arrange appetizers on silver trays. Our home in Queen Anne, Seattle, glowed with the soft light of an October afternoon. I had spent weeks preparing for this celebration, choosing flowers, selecting music, crafting a guest list that balanced obligation with genuine affection. 10 years of marriage to Marcus Rhodes deserved recognition. 10 years of building a life together, of choosing each other every single day, of creating something real in a world full of pretense. I walked through the living room one final time, adjusting a flower arrangement, straightening a photograph. Everything looked elegant, simple, right. Then my hand moved to my blazer pocket. My fingers found the small USB drive I had been carrying for 2 months. Still there, always there. Marcus called it insurance. I called it the truth. I had hoped I would not need it tonight. I had hoped against 35 years of evidence that my parents might simply behave like parents for once. That they might smile genuinely, offer a kind word. Let me have one evening without the subtle cuts and calculated cruelty that had defined my childhood. I was wrong. I was always wrong about them. Marcus appeared in the doorway, watching me check the USB drive for the 3rd time that hour. His expression asked the question he did not need to speak aloud. "I do not know if I will use it," I admitted. "I just need to know it is there." He crossed the room and pulled me close. "Whatever happens tonight, I am proud of you. Whatever you decide." I leaned into his warmth. 12 years together, 10 of them married. He had watched my family wound me more times than I could count. He had held me after phone calls that left me shattered. He had never once told me to cut them off, never pushed me toward a confrontation I was not ready for. He simply waited, loved me, and prepared for the day I would finally be ready to protect myself. That day had come. I just did not know it yet. Our home represented everything I had built without my parents' help. A craftsman-style house we had saved for over 7 years. A life constructed through our own work, our own choices, our own love. I was 35 years old, a senior marketing director at a technology company, successful by any reasonable measure. Yet to my parents, I remained the disappointing daughter, the one who moved too far away, the one who married beneath her station, the one who thought she was too good for her own family. The irony was suffocating. For 10 years, I had sent money home every month. I had paid for my father's knee surgery when their insurance fell short. I had covered my mother's credit card debt not once but twice. I had funded my sister Megan's failed boutique business, her apartment deposits, her endless fresh starts. None of it was ever enough. None of it was ever acknowledged. The doorbell rang at 4:30. Guests were not expected until 6. My stomach tightened. I opened the door to find my parents standing on the porch, arriving 90 minutes early with the satisfied expressions of people who enjoyed catching others unprepared. "We wanted to help set up," Patricia announced, sweeping past me into the house without waiting for an invitation. "Goodness, Victoria, you look tired. Are you sleeping enough?" The first cut of the evening, delivered before she had even removed her coat. My father Harold followed, offering me a brief nod that served as his version of affection. He carried a small gift box, too small for anything meaningful, wrapped in silver paper with a bow that looked deliberately cheap. I watched them move through my home, commenting on the furniture arrangement, the choice of flowers, the catering menu I had spent weeks perfecting. Each observation carried a subtle criticism. Each compliment contained a hidden barb. Aunt Caroline arrived next, my mother's older sister and the only member of my extended family who had ever truly seen me. She hugged me longer than necessary and whispered against my ear, "I am here. Whatever happens, I am here." My pulse quickened. Caroline knew about the USB drive. She had helped me gather some of what it contained. Her presence was not coincidental. It was reinforcement. Megan arrived at 5:30, my younger sister, the golden child, the favorite. She wore a designer dress I recognized from a boutique we had passed together 3 months ago. She had mentioned she could not afford it. Apparently, our parents had solved that problem, as they always did for her. Megan's greeting was warm but nervous. Her eyes darted around the room, unable to settle on anything or anyone. She knew something was wrong. I could see it in the way she flinched when Patricia laughed too loudly at nothing. By 6:15, the house had filled with 50 guests. Colleagues from my company, neighbors who had become friends, Marcus's business partners and their wives, a careful mix of people who represented the life I had built far from my parents' shadow. The string quartet played softly in the corner. Champagne flowed. Conversations hummed with the pleasant energy of people enjoying themselves. But I could not relax. I watched my parents work the room, charming the guests who did not know them, performing the roles of loving mother and proud father with practiced ease. I heard Patricia tell a neighbor that I had always been ambitious, some might say too ambitious for a woman. I watched Harold corner Marcus's colleague and joke that his daughter had married an architect, as if that were something to apologize for. Each comment landed like a small knife. I collected them, added them to the pile I had been gathering for 35 years. At 7:45, Patricia called for everyone's attention. Her voice cut through the music, the conversations, the carefully constructed piece of my evening. "Before we toast the happy couple, Harold and I have a special gift for our daughter." The room gathered. Phones emerged to capture the moment. This was supposed to be heartwarming. This was supposed to be love. My hand moved to my pocket, found the USB drive. Patricia's smile was too bright. Harold's smirk was barely concealed. They were enjoying this. They had planned this. She handed me the silver-wrapped box. "Open it, sweetheart. We chose it especially for you." And I did. And inside lay a faded handkerchief. And my mother delivered her line about my worth to this family. And the room laughed or gasped or looked away in discomfort. And I made a choice. But before I tell you what happened when I pressed play, you need to understand something. You need to understand the 35 years that led to this moment. You need to understand why a daughter would stand in her own living room and expose her parents' secrets to 50 witnesses. You need to understand what they did to me. I was 5 years old the first time I understood I was not the favorite. It was a Tuesday evening in 1994. Our family sat around the dinner table in the house where I grew up, a modest colonial in a Connecticut suburb where appearances mattered more than truth. I had spent all day at school working on a drawing, a picture of our family holding hands under a yellow sun. I was so proud of it that I could barely eat my meatloaf. "Mommy, look what I made." I held up the paper with both hands, waiting for her smile, her praise, her love. Patricia glanced at my drawing for perhaps 2 seconds. "That is nice," she said, and set it aside without another look. Then she turned to my sister Megan, 3 years old and struggling with her peas, and spent the next 10 minutes praising her for eating her vegetables. "What a good girl you are, Megan. Look at you finishing your dinner. Daddy, look how well Megan is doing." I sat there holding my drawing, waiting for someone to notice. No one did. That night, I learned a lesson that would take me 30 years to unlearn. My best efforts were invisible. Megan's ordinary existence was cause for celebration. I was 5 years old, and I already understood that I would never be enough. The pattern only deepened as we grew older. Megan became the golden child, beautiful and delicate, someone the world wanted to protect. I became the scapegoat, too independent, too ambitious, too much of everything my parents did not want in a daughter. The double standards were constant and crushing. Megan failed 8th grade math. My parents hired her an expensive tutor and told everyone she was simply creative rather than academic, as if failure were a charming personality quirk. I received a B+ in honors chemistry the same year. My father looked at my report card and asked why it was not an A. "Your sister would have tried harder," he said. Megan had never taken an honors class in her life. When Megan was 17, she crashed the family car into a mailbox after sneaking out past curfew. My father bought her a new car the following week because she needed reliable transportation. When I was 17, I asked to borrow the car to attend my senior prom. My mother told me I could take the bus because I needed to learn responsibility. Megan dropped out of college twice. There were no consequences, only more funding for her next fresh start. I worked 2 jobs throughout my undergraduate years because my parents decided that since I wanted independence, I could pay for it myself. My independence was not a choice. It was a punishment for being the wrong kind of daughter. I used to believe that if I achieved enough, they would finally see me. Valedictorian, full scholarship to graduate school. Dean's List every semester, a corner office before I turned 30. None of it mattered. I could have cured cancer, and my mother would have asked why I had not cured it faster. The cruelest irony came later, when I became the family's financial lifeline despite being the disappointing daughter. It started when I was 24, fresh out of graduate school and working my first real job. Patricia called me crying, her voice thick with panic. "We are behind on the mortgage, Victoria. Please do not tell your father I called. I need $2,000 or we will lose the house." I sent the money that same day. It was the first of many transfers. Over the next 10 years, the requests multiplied. Harold's knee surgery cost $12,000 when their insurance denied the claim. Patricia's credit card debt required $8,000 to clear, and then another $8,000 2 years later, when she accumulated it again. Megan's boutique business needed $15,000 in startup capital. It failed within 6 months. Megan's fresh start apartment required a $3,000 deposit when her latest boyfriend abandoned her. I kept a spreadsheet, not because I wanted the money back, but because I needed proof that I was not the selfish daughter they claimed I was. 10 years of transfers. $120,000 given to the family that told everyone I had abandoned them. Not once did Harold or Patricia say thank you. Instead, they complained that my help came with strings attached, though it never did. They said the money was not enough, though it always was. They accused me of trying to control them through financial support, when all I wanted was to be seen as someone who loved them. I was funding the family that painted me as the villain. I was the monster in a story I was paying to maintain. But not everyone was blind to the truth. My grandmother Eleanor was the only person in my family who truly loved me without conditions. She was my mother's mother, a woman who had survived her own difficult marriage, and emerged with a clarity that Patricia never developed. I remember being 16 years old, crying in Eleanor's kitchen after another fight with my parents. They had forgotten my birthday, not overlooked it, not been too busy. Forgotten it entirely, while throwing Megan a surprise party for making the junior varsity cheerleading squad. Eleanor held me while I sobbed. Her hands were soft and papery, and she smelled like lavender and old books. "Your mother is broken in ways she will never admit," Eleanor said quietly. "But that brokenness is not your fault, Victoria. And fixing it is not your job." Eleanor was the only family member who attended my college graduation. The only one who sent cards that said "I am proud of you" without attaching conditions. The only one who called every Sunday after I moved to Seattle and actually listened when I answered. She died 3 years ago. Pancreatic cancer. Fast and brutal. I flew home the moment I received the diagnosis and spent her final weeks holding her hand, reading to her, trying to give back some fraction of the love she had shown me. Her last words to me still echo in my memory. "I left something for you," she whispered, her grip surprisingly strong. "Do not let them take it, Victoria. Promise me." I promised. I did not understand what she meant. I thought she was confused, speaking in metaphors about love or memories. I did not want her final days to be about money or family politics. I wanted her to go peacefully. She died believing I would receive her gift. She died trusting her own daughter to honor her wishes. After the funeral, Patricia told me that Eleanor's will had left everything to Megan. Grandma knew Megan needed it more, my mother explained with that practiced sympathy that never reached her eyes. "You understand? Do not you, Victoria? You are so independent. You do not need anything from anyone." I accepted this explanation. I was grieving. I was exhausted. I did not question why the grandmother who loved me most had left me nothing. That was my mistake. When I met Marcus, I finally understood what love was supposed to feel like. He saw me, not my achievements or my usefulness, me. We married 10 years ago in a small ceremony in Seattle. My parents complained about everything, the location, the venue, the food. They left early without saying goodbye. Over the decade, they found endless ways to diminish my marriage. "Marcus seems nice, but architects do not make real money. When are you giving us grandchildren? Megan would be a better mother anyway. Your house is cute. Megan's is bigger." Last year, Marcus held me after another phone call that left me hollow. "I love you," he said, "but I cannot watch them destroy you anymore. Something has to change." That conversation started everything. That was when I began collecting evidence. The truth emerged because of a mistake. Harold's mistake. 18 months ago, I received an email he had forwarded by accident. He meant to send it to Patricia but clicked my address instead. The subject line read, "Eleanor situation." The contents made my vision blur and my hands shake. She can never know about the real will. The lawyer agreed to lose the paperwork for $5,000. Victoria thinks everything went to Megan. Keep it that way. My parents had stolen my inheritance. They had bribed a lawyer. They had lied to my face while I was grieving my grandmother. I called Aunt Caroline that same night. She confirmed everything. "I witnessed that will, Victoria. Your grandmother left you $150,000. Your parents took it all. That was when the planning began. That was when I decided that the next time my parents tried to humiliate me publicly, I would be ready." Back in my living room, my finger pressed play. 50 guests watched. My parents had no idea what was coming. They thought I would cry or scream or run away like I always had. But I was not the same Victoria who accepted their cruelty in silence. The first frame appeared on the screen. The screen flickered to life and my parents' smiles began to die. The first image appeared in high definition on the 65-inch television I had purchased last year. A screenshot of a group chat. The family group chat I had been removed from 3 years ago. The one Patricia claimed had been accidentally deleted when she got a new phone. It was not deleted, it was hidden. And I had obtained the entire history through Aunt Caroline, who remained a member and had been quietly documenting everything for months. A title card appeared, white text against a black background. "What my parents say about me when they think I cannot hear." The silence in the room was absolute. 50 pairs of eyes shifted from the screen to Harold and Patricia, then back again. The string quartet had stopped playing. Even the catering staff had frozen in place. Patricia's voice cut through the stillness, sharp with panic. "Victoria, turn that off right now." I did not move, did not respond. My eyes stayed fixed on the screen as the first message appeared. It was dated 18 months ago, sent from Patricia to the family group. Victoria called again asking about Christmas plans. I told her we are busy. The less she comes around, the better. She always ruins the mood with her attitude. Someone near the window inhaled sharply. I recognized the sound. It was Mrs. Patterson, my 72-year-old neighbor who had known my parents socially for years. The first crack in the room's composure. The messages continued scrolling. Each one a knife I had already felt, but now the wounds were visible to everyone. Harold, 6 months ago. "She thinks she is better than us because she has a fancy job. Wait until she needs something. Then we will see how independent she really is." Patricia, responding immediately. "She has always been ungrateful. I gave her everything, and she acts like we owe her." I watched my father's face as his words appeared on screen. He had gone pale, his jaw clenched so tight I could see the vein pulsing at his temple. My mother gripped his arm, her knuckles white. The video continued, relentless. I had organized the messages chronologically, letting the pattern speak for itself. Years of contempt, years of mockery, years of two faces. One they showed the world, and one they showed each other when discussing me. I noticed something as the messages scrolled past. Megan's responses were different from our parents. She rarely participated in the attacks. Mostly she sent neutral replies or changed the subject. A few times she had written things like, "Maybe we should not say that," or "Victoria might see this somehow." Our parents had ignored her every time. I filed this information away. It would matter later. A new thread appeared on screen. This one was dated 3 months ago, and the subject made the room stir with discomfort. Patricia to Harold. "She invited us to her little party. Should we even go?" Harold's response. "We should go. Perfect opportunity to remind her of her place." Patricia again. "I have an idea for a gift. Something that will knock her down a few pegs in front of everyone." Harold. "I love how your mind works." The room temperature seemed to drop another 10 degrees. These were not impulsive comments made in anger. This was premeditation, 3 months of planning to humiliate me at my own anniversary celebration. Mrs. Patterson set down her champagne glass with a deliberate clink. The sound echoed in the silence. Her expression had shifted from festive confusion to something harder, something that looked like recognition. The video transitioned to a new section. Title card. Planning the anniversary gift. 3 months of preparation. More messages appeared, Patricia texting a friend who was not part of the family group. "Victoria gave me this ugly handkerchief years ago. I am going to wrap it up and give it back to her at her anniversary party. In front of everyone. She will be so humiliated." The friend's response made me pause. "Patricia, that is cruel. She is your daughter." My mother's reply was devastating in its casualness. She stopped being my daughter when she decided she was too good for this family. The friend never responded after that message. Even an outsider could see the cruelty for what it was. Harold's contribution appeared next, sent 1 week before tonight. What should we say when she opens it? Patricia's answer was precise. "I have been practicing. Something about her deserving what matches her worth." Make it sound like a compliment, but everyone will know what we mean. Harold's final message in the thread. Brilliant. She will probably cry. Good. She needs to learn some humility. They planned this for 3 months. 90 days of anticipation. 90 days of imagining their daughter's tears and finding joy in the image. I looked at my parents as these words hung on the screen. Patricia's face had gone white. She looked like someone watching their house burn down, helpless to stop the destruction. Harold stood rigid beside her, his earlier smugness replaced by something I had never seen on his face before. Fear. Patricia stepped forward, her voice rising to a desperate pitch. "This is enough. These are private family matters. Victoria, you are airing our dirty laundry in front of strangers. I turned to face her. My voice was level, almost clinical. 3 hours ago, you aired my worth to this family in front of these same people. You called me worthless in front of my husband's colleagues, my neighbors, my friends. You planned it for 3 months. You enjoyed the thought of my tears. I let the words settle into the silence. You wanted a public performance. Now you have one. Patricia pivoted, attempting to salvage her social standing. She turned to the guests with her practiced hostess smile, the one I had seen her deploy at garden parties and charity events for decades. I am so sorry, everyone. My daughter has always been dramatic. She clearly needs help. Let us just move past this and enjoy the evening. A voice cut through from near the fireplace. Sit down, Patricia. Everyone turned. Aunt Caroline stood with her arms crossed, her face set in an expression I had never seen directed at her younger sister. Decades of restraint had finally broken. I have watched you torture this girl for 35 years, Caroline said. Her voice carried to every corner of the room. Tonight, you are going to stand there and face what you have done. For once in your life, you do not get to control the narrative. Patricia's mouth opened, closed. For possibly the first time in her adult life, she had no response. Harold reached for his wife's arm. We are leaving, he announced, trying to summon authority into his voice. I spoke before they could take a step. The doors are not locked, but I would stay if I were you. The next part involves money. They froze, both of them. The word money stopped them like a physical barrier. I took a moment to observe the room. The social landscape had shifted completely in the past 10 minutes. Marcus stood near the kitchen doorway, his expression calm but his eyes bright with something like pride. He had known this moment would come. He had helped me prepare for it. Now he watched me claim my own dignity, and I could feel his support like a warm hand on my back. Megan had retreated to a corner near the staircase. She was crying, but not the way I expected. These were not tears of embarrassment for our parents. They looked like tears of relief, as if something she had carried for years was finally being acknowledged. The guests had separated into visible factions, some clearly uncomfortable, checking phones, avoiding eye contact. These were Harold and Patricia's social connections, people invested in the polished image my parents had cultivated. Others had moved closer to the screen, watching with an intensity I recognized. These were people who understood. People who had perhaps lived something similar. Sandra, a colleague from my company, stood near the bookshelf. She was 58, divorced 3 years ago after discovering her own family's betrayals. Tears streamed down her face as she watched the messages scroll past. She whispered to no one in particular. I wish I had done this 20 years ago. Mrs. Patterson caught my eye across the room and gave me a small, firm nod. The older woman understood what was happening. She had seen this before, maybe in her own life, maybe in the lives of others. Her nod was permission and approval and solidarity all at once. The text messages faded from the screen. A moment of black. Patricia seized the pause. Are you satisfied now? You have humiliated us in front of everyone. Is this what you wanted? I considered her question carefully before answering. No. What I wanted was parents who loved me. I realized a long time ago that I could not have that. So I settled for the truth. I turned back to the television and pressed another button on my phone. That was the written evidence, I announced to the room. Now let me show you what they sound like when they think no one is recording. A new title card appeared. Audio recordings. What love sounds like in the Rhodes family. The first recording began to play. My mother's voice filled the room, but not the Patricia these guests knew. This was Patricia at home, unguarded, speaking to my father in the kitchen of their Connecticut house. I cannot believe she is actually throwing an anniversary party. 10 years married to that mediocre architect. What is there to celebrate? She probably just wants attention. She always did. Harold's laugh came through the speakers, cruel and dismissive. Let her have her little party. We will make sure she remembers who she really is. The room was frozen. No one moved. No one breathed. The recordings would play for 7 minutes. 7 minutes containing 10 years of conversations I was never meant to hear. By the time the last one ended, there would be no more pretending. For any of us. There is something uniquely devastating about hearing your mother's real voice, the one she uses when she thinks you cannot hear. The first recording filled my living room with a conversation I had obtained 14 months ago. It was a phone call between Patricia and her friend Deborah, captured by Aunt Caroline during a visit to my parents' house. Caroline had kept her phone recording in her purse, hidden beneath a scarf, while Patricia chatted in the kitchen, unaware that her words were being preserved forever. Victoria sent money again. My mother's voice was casual, almost bored. You would think that would make her less insufferable, but no. She attaches these little notes asking how we are doing, like she actually cares. She just wants to feel superior. She has been like that since she was a child, always needing to be the martyr. Deborah's response came through clearly. She does send quite a lot, though, does she not? That is her guilt money. Patricia laughed, and the sound made several guests flinch. She abandoned us for Seattle, married that nobody architect, and now she throws cash at us to ease her conscience. Trust me, if she really loved us, she would move back home where she belongs. I watched my mother's face as her own recorded voice echoed through the room. She looked like she had aged 10 years in 30 seconds. The careful composure she had maintained through the text messages was cracking now. Audio was different from text. You could hear the contempt. You could feel the dismissal. Guilt money. I had skipped vacations to send those transfers. I had delayed contributing to my retirement account. I had said no to things I wanted because my family needed help, and she called it guilt money. The first recording faded. The second began immediately. I had edited them together to create maximum impact. No pauses for breath, no moments for my parents to interrupt or deflect. Harold's voice now, speaking to his brother Richard on the phone. I had never been close to my uncle. Now I understood why. She makes good money. That is the only thing she is good for. Harold's tone was dismissive, the way someone might talk about a disappointing investment. But you know what kills me? She acts like sending us a few thousand here and there makes her some kind of saint. My own daughter treats me like a charity case. Richard asked the question I had always wanted answered. How much has she sent over the years? I do not know. Enough. Not as much as she could. She bought herself a fancy house in Seattle, but she cannot help her own father with more than scraps. Scraps. $120,000 over 10 years. Scraps. The video paused on the audio and transitioned to a new visual. A spreadsheet appeared on screen, one I had maintained for a decade, updated after every transfer, every emergency loan, every crisis I had funded. The title read, Financial Support, provided to Harold and Patricia Rhodes. 10-year summary. Line items appeared one by one, each number burning into the consciousness of everyone watching. Medical expenses, Harold's knee surgery, $12,000. Credit card debt, Patricia, cleared twice, $16,000. Home repairs, various emergencies, $18,000. Monthly support, averaged over 10 years, $60,000. Loans to Megan facilitated through parents, $14,000. The total appeared at the bottom of the screen, highlighted in red, $120,000. The number sat there glowing, undeniable. Concrete evidence of a decade of support that my parents had dismissed as scraps, as guilt, as not enough. Tom, Marcus's business partner, let out a low whistle from somewhere behind me. Jesus Christ, he muttered. The words carried in the silence. The spreadsheet faded. Recording 3 began. This one I had obtained only 3 weeks ago, the final piece of evidence I needed before tonight. Harold and Patricia on a phone call with each other. My father was at his golf club. My mother was at home. Neither of them knew that Aunt Caroline was visiting, her phone recording in the kitchen while Patricia chatted on speaker. I found it. Patricia's voice was bright with anticipation. "The handkerchief she gave me. It is perfect." Harold sounded amused. "You are really going to re-gift it?" "In front of everyone. I have been planning what to say. Something about her deserving what matches her worth. She will get the message. And if she cries?" My mother laughed. The sound was unlike anything I had heard from her before, delighted and cruel, savoring the image of her daughter's tears like a fine wine. "Then she cries. Maybe she will finally understand that she is not as special as she thinks she is. She has been showing off for years with her job and her house. Time someone reminded her where she came from." "What if she makes a scene?" Harold asked. "Victoria?" Patricia's dismissal was absolute. "Please, she has never stood up for herself in her life. She will take it quietly like she always does. That is why it is so satisfying." The recording ended. The silence that followed was heavier than anything that had come before. I turned to face my mother directly. "You were wrong about one thing. I do not take it quietly anymore." Patricia's lips moved, but no sound emerged. For the first time in my memory, my mother had absolutely nothing to say. The social geography of the room had completely transformed. When the evening began, Harold and Patricia were respected guests, beloved parents celebrating their daughter's milestone. Now they stood isolated near the fireplace, a visible gap forming between them and everyone else. Mrs. Patterson had moved to stand near me, a deliberate positioning that spoke louder than words. She was choosing sides, and she was choosing mine. Sandra was openly crying now, tears streaming down her face as she shook her head slowly. She kept mouthing the same words over and over. "I know, I know." Two women I recognized from Patricia's garden club edged toward the front door. One of them caught my mother's eye and immediately looked away, unable to maintain the connection. They would be gone within minutes. Marcus's mother, Helen, walked directly to my father. She was 70 years old, a widow who had raised her son alone after her husband died young. She had worked 2 jobs to put Marcus through college. She understood sacrifice. She understood family. Her voice was quiet, but it carried to every corner of the room. "I have known your daughter for 12 years, Helen said to Harold. "She is one of the finest people I have ever met. I am ashamed to be in the same room as you." She turned her back on my father and walked to me, pulled me into a hug, whispered against my ear, "I am proud of you, sweetheart. Robert would be proud too." Robert was Marcus's late father, a man I had never met but felt I knew through the stories his wife and son told. A man who believed in truth and dignity and standing up for what was right. I felt tears threaten for the first time tonight. I blinked them back. I was not finished yet. Patricia finally found her voice. What emerged was not an apology. It was an attempt at manipulation, the same tactic she had used on me for 35 years. She began crying, loud, theatrical sobs that she had perfected over decades of getting her way. Her hands covered her face. Her body shook with performed grief. "How could you do this to me?" she wailed. "I am your mother. I gave you life. I raised you. And this is how you repay me? By humiliating me in front of everyone?" The old Victoria would have wavered, would have felt guilt creep through her resolve, would have rushed to comfort, to apologize, to smooth everything over and pretend the evidence on screen was somehow a misunderstanding. The old Victoria was dead. "You gave me life," I said calmly. "You did not give me love. You gave me criticism, comparison, and contempt. You took my money and called it guilt. You planned my humiliation for 3 months and called it a lesson. You stole my inheritance and called it necessary." Patricia's sobs stopped abruptly. Her eyes, still wet with theatrical tears, sharpened with something new: fear. What inheritance? I do not know what you are talking about. I almost smiled. The mask had slipped. She had revealed herself. That is interesting, I said, because I have documentation that suggests otherwise. Documentation about Grandma Eleanor's will, the real one, the one you paid a lawyer $5,000 to make disappear. Harold stepped forward, trying to summon authority. Now wait just a minute. Sit down, Dad. The command in my voice surprised even me. But Harold sat. For the first time in 35 years, my father did exactly what I told him to do. I turned back to the screen and clicked to the next section of the video. A title card appeared. The Eleanor Rhodes Estate. What my parents never wanted me to know. I paused before playing it, addressed the room directly. For those who do not know, my grandmother Eleanor passed away 3 years ago. She was the only person in my family who ever loved me without conditions. Before she died, she told me she was leaving me something. She made me promise not to let anyone take it. My voice caught slightly. I steadied myself and continued. I never received anything. My parents told me Grandma left everything to my sister Megan. I believed them. I was grieving. I trusted them. I looked directly at Patricia and Harold. I should not have trusted them. Aunt Caroline stepped forward from her position near the fireplace. Her voice was clear and unwavering. I was there when my mother wrote her will. I witnessed it. I signed it. Eleanor left her estate equally divided between both granddaughters. Victoria's share was $150,000. Patricia's voice cracked with desperation. Caroline, you swore you would never. I swore I would protect my mother's wishes. Caroline's response was ice. That is exactly what I am doing. The next section of the video contained documents I had spent 18 months gathering. Bank records, email trails, a sworn statement from a lawyer who had rediscovered his conscience. By the time it finished playing, everyone in that room would know the full truth. My parents had not just insulted me. They had not just planned my humiliation. They had stolen my inheritance. They had betrayed a dying woman's final wishes. They had taken my last connection to the only person who ever made me feel like I belonged in my own family. And now, finally, they were going to answer for it. The screen filled with an image I had never been meant to see. My grandmother's real will. The document appeared in sharp detail, a legal form titled Last Will and Testament of Eleanor Marie Rhodes. The date showed it was signed 4 years ago. 2 witness signatures appeared at the bottom. One belonged to a notary named Margaret Whitfield. The other belonged to Aunt Caroline. I addressed the room as the document remained on screen. This is my grandmother's will. The original, not the version my parents showed me after she died. A section near the middle of the document glowed with yellow highlighting. Article 4, Distribution of Estate. I watched the guests lean forward to read the words that had been hidden from me for 3 years. I leave my estate to be divided equally between my 2 granddaughters, Victoria Ann Rhodes and Megan Elizabeth Rhodes. Each shall receive 50% of all liquid assets, estimated at $300,000 total. Someone dropped a glass. The sound of shattering crystal echoed through the silence, but no one moved to clean it up. Every eye remained fixed on the screen. $150,000, I said quietly. That was my grandmother's final gift to me. The gift my parents told me did not exist. Patricia's voice cut through the room, shrill with desperation. That document is fake. Eleanor changed her mind. She wanted everything to go to Megan. Aunt Caroline's response came immediately, cold as January ice. Eleanor never changed anything. You did. The video continued. I had organized the evidence methodically, building the case piece by piece the way a prosecutor might present to a jury. Document after document appeared on screen, each one another nail in the coffin of my parents' lies. The first exhibit was a bank statement from Eleanor's estate account. 2 withdrawals had been made 3 days after her death, before the will was even filed with the probate court. The amounts totaled $147,000. The receiving account belonged to Harold Rhodes. The second exhibit was an email exchange that made several guests gasp audibly. The messages were between my father and a lawyer named David Chen. The subject line read, "Regarding the Rhodes estate. Confidential." Harold's first email appeared on screen. "We need the original will to disappear." My wife's mother was confused at the end. She did not mean to include Victoria. "Can you help us file a simplified version?" David Chen's response followed. "This is highly irregular. There could be consequences." My father's reply was damning in its casual corruption. $5,000. Cash. No consequences if no one finds out. The lawyer's final message in the thread: "I will see what I can do." I paused on this exchange, letting it burn into the memory of everyone watching. $5,000. That is what my inheritance was worth to my parents. That is what my grandmother's dying wishes were worth to them. $5,000 to make me disappear from her legacy. The next document appeared. A sworn affidavit from David Chen himself, obtained 2 months ago after my attorney contacted him about potential disbarment proceedings. The threat of losing his license had loosened his conscience considerably. His statement was brief, but devastating. I was paid to suppress the original will and file an amended version. I deeply regret my involvement in this matter. I paused the video. The documentation would continue, but first I needed the room to understand who Eleanor was. Numbers and legal documents told part of the story. The rest required memory. 3 years ago, I said, my voice softer now, Swedish Medical Center in Seattle. I flew home the moment I learned the diagnosis. Pancreatic cancer, stage 4. The doctors gave her weeks, not months. The memories flooded back as I spoke. Eleanor's hospital room filled with flowers I had sent daily, the machines beeping their steady rhythm. The grandmother who had loved me unconditionally, reduced to a small figure in a large bed. She looked so fragile those final days, I continued. But her eyes were still sharp, still full of love. She held my hand with surprising strength for someone so close to the end. I could still feel the paper-thin skin of her fingers wrapped around mine, could still smell the lavender lotion the nurses applied to keep her comfortable. Could still hear her voice, weakened but determined. She told me she had written everything down, that Caroline had a copy. She made me promise not to let them take what was mine. My voice caught. I steadied myself and continued. I should have asked what she meant. But she was dying. I did not want her last days to be about money or family drama. I wanted her to go peacefully. I looked at my mother, letting the weight of my next words fall directly on her. She died believing I would receive her gift. She died trusting her own daughter to honor her wishes. You let your mother die with that trust, Patricia. Then you betrayed it before her body was cold. Patricia flinched as if I had struck her. For a brief moment, something flickered across her face. It might have been shame, it might have been fear. Whatever it was disappeared quickly, replaced by the defiant expression she wore like armor. I returned to the video. One more revelation remained in this section. A title card appeared. Where did Victoria's inheritance go? A property deed filled the screen. An address in Portland, Oregon. The buyer's name was Megan Elizabeth Rhodes. The purchase date was 8 months after Eleanor's death. The purchase price was $285,000. The down payment was highlighted, $140,000. My parents used my inheritance to buy my sister a house, I announced to the room. They told me I received nothing because Grandma loved Megan more. In reality, they took my share and handed it to my sister, then told me I was too independent to need anything from anyone. The final piece of evidence in this section appeared, a screenshot of text messages between Patricia and Megan, dated 1 week after the house purchase closed. Patricia's message was clear and damning. Do not ever tell Victoria about where the down payment came from. She does not need to know. She has her fancy Seattle life. You needed this more. Megan's response gave me pause. Are you sure this is right, Mom? Grandma's will said both of us should get equal shares. Patricia's reply was dismissive. Grandma was old and confused. I knew what she really wanted. Victoria would not have appreciated the money anyway. She would just waste it on herself. The exchange ended there. Megan had not responded to that final message. I looked across the room at my sister. She stood near the staircase, trembling visibly, tears streaming down her face. She was shaking her head slowly, as if trying to deny what she was seeing. "I did not know," Megan whispered. The words were barely audible, but the room was so silent they carried to every corner. "Mom told me it was money from their savings. I did not know it was yours." Aunt Caroline stepped forward. She had been waiting for this moment for 3 years. "I need to explain something to everyone here," Caroline announced. Her voice carried the authority of someone who had held her tongue too long. "My mother Eleanor knew exactly what Patricia was capable of. That is why she made me witness the will. That is why she gave me a copy. She told me directly, if Patricia tries to cheat Victoria, you show them the truth." Caroline's expression hardened as she continued. Eleanor knew her own daughter. She knew because Patricia had done this before. The room stirred. A new revelation was coming. 23 years ago, when our father died, Patricia manipulated his estate too. She convinced him to change his will when he was on heavy medication in his final weeks. She got 70% of everything. I got 30. I could not prove anything then. I was too shocked, too grief-stricken to fight. Caroline looked at her sister with an exhaustion that spanned decades. "I promised myself I would not let you do it again, not to your own daughter, not to the only person in this family who actually loved our mother unconditionally." Patricia erupted, her voice cracking with rage. "You always took her side. Victoria was always your favorite. This is jealousy, pure jealousy. You could never accept that I was closer to Mother than you were." Caroline's response was devastating in its calm. "Eleanor was my mother. Victoria is my niece." "I do not have favorites, Patricia. I have principles. You would not understand the difference." The silence that followed was absolute. Patricia had no response. The pattern of her behavior stretched back decades now, visible to everyone. This was not a single mistake or a momentary lapse in judgment. This was who she was. Harold finally spoke, his voice rough and defensive. "Everything we did for this family. Victoria did not need that money. She has a career, she has a house, she has a husband who provides. Megan had nothing. We were just evening things out." I stared at my father. "Evening things out." "Yes," he continued, apparently believing this explanation would help his case. "That is what parents do. We make sure all our children are taken care of." "You stole from one child to give to another," I said slowly. "You lied about a dying woman's wishes. You bribed a lawyer. You manipulated your own daughter's grief. And you call that taking care of your children?" Harold's jaw tightened. "You would not understand. You have always been selfish." A bitter laugh escaped me before I could stop it. "I have given you $120,000 over 10 years. I have given you everything except my dignity." I let the words hang in the air for a moment before finishing. "And tonight, I am taking that back too." The evidence was complete. The truth was exposed. My parents stood revealed as thieves who had stolen from their own daughter, liars who had betrayed a dying woman's trust. But I was not prepared for what happened next. My sister Megan, the golden child, the favorite, the one who had received everything I was denied, stepped away from the staircase and walked toward the center of the room. She stopped between me and our parents. Her tears had stopped, her hands had steadied. Something in her expression had changed. "I have something to say," she announced, "and I think everyone needs to hear it." My sister walked toward me, and I prepared for attack. I was wrong. Megan crossed the room with unsteady steps. Mascara streaked her cheeks. Her designer dress, the one our parents had undoubtedly purchased for her, was wrinkled where she had been clutching the fabric in her fists. She looked like someone waking from a very long sleep. I braced myself for what I expected. This was the moment Megan would defend our parents. This was where the golden child would protect the people who had given her everything. This was when their alliance would finally reveal itself openly, the three of them united against me as they had always been. But Megan walked past our parents without looking at them. She stopped directly in front of me, close enough that I could see her hands trembling. Her voice was barely a whisper, but in the absolute silence of the room, everyone heard every word. "I am sorry. I am so sorry, Victoria. I did not know about the will. I swear I did not know." Patricia's voice cut through immediately, sharp with panic. "Megan, do not say another word. Come stand with your family." Megan turned slowly to face our mother. Something had changed in her expression. The fragile golden child was gone. In her place stood a woman who had just realized she had been used as a weapon against her own sister for 32 years. "I am standing with my family," Megan said, "for the first time in my life." The words landed like a bomb in the center of the room. Patricia staggered backward as if physically struck. Harold's face contorted with confusion and rage. Megan turned to address the guests directly. Her voice grew stronger as she spoke. "Everyone thinks I had it easy. The favorite daughter, the one who got everything, the money, the attention, the house in Portland." She paused, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. "But I want you all to understand something. Being the favorite in my family was not a gift. It was a leash." She began explaining, and with each word, my understanding of my sister's life shifted and reformed. Every decision I have ever made was made by my mother, my college major. She chose it. "I wanted to study veterinary science." She said that was a career for people without better options. "So I majored in communications because she decided it sounded more impressive at dinner parties. My first apartment. She selected it. A building where one of her friends was the landlord so she could keep tabs on me. The boyfriend I dated for 4 years, David. She introduced us. She approved of his family's money. When he proposed, I wanted to say yes. She said no because his career was not advancing fast enough. She ended the relationship by telling his mother I was seeing someone else. I found out 6 months later." Megan's voice cracked, but she continued. "I wanted to be a veterinarian. Mom said that was beneath me. I wanted to live in Denver after college. Mom said I needed to stay close. I wanted to marry Ryan. Mom said he was not good enough for our family." She looked at me with something I had never seen directed my way before. Envy. "You escaped, Victoria. You built your own life in Seattle. You married someone you chose. You have a career you built with your own hands. I have spent 32 years being shaped into whatever Mom needed me to be at any given moment." I stared at my sister. For 3 decades, I had seen only the gifts, the praise, the obvious favoritism. I had never considered what strings might be attached, what price Megan might be paying for all that golden attention. "They controlled you with money," Megan said directly to me. "They controlled me with love, or what I thought was love. Both of us were trapped, Victoria, just in different cages." The room was utterly still. Even Patricia had stopped trying to interrupt. Megan took a breath. What came next was clearly harder for her to say. "I need to be honest about something. I did not know about the will fraud. But I am not innocent either." I waited, uncertain what was coming. "I knew they talked about you behind your back. I was in that group chat. I saw the messages, all of them. I never participated in attacking you, but I never defended you either. I told myself that staying neutral was enough." She shook her head slowly. It was not enough. Silence is not neutral. Silence is permission. The confession continued, each word landing with the weight of years. "I knew about the anniversary gift plan. Mom told me 2 weeks ago. She was so excited about it, so delighted at the thought of humiliating you in front of all these people. I told her it was cruel. She said you deserved to be taken down a few pegs." "Victoria," Megan said, meeting my eyes. "I should have warned you." "You still came," I said, "knowing what they planned. You still walked through my door tonight. I came to warn you." Megan pulled out her phone. Her fingers moved across the screen for a moment before she turned it toward me. A text message glowed in the dim light, time-stamped at 6:47 that evening. 2 hours before the party officially began. "Victoria, please call me before the party. It is important. Mom is planning something. I am scared for you." I pulled out my own phone and checked. The message was there in my texts, sitting unread among dozens of others. I had been too busy with last-minute preparations to notice it. "I tried," Megan whispered. "I should have tried harder. I should have called you directly instead of texting. But I was afraid of what Mom would do if she found out I warned you." I looked at my sister with new eyes. Not the golden child who had stolen everything I deserved. A fellow prisoner who had been controlled through different means, but controlled nonetheless. Patricia could not accept what was happening. Both of her tools, both of her daughters, were slipping from her grasp simultaneously. She rushed toward Megan and grabbed her arm, fingers digging into flesh. "Megan, sweetheart, you do not know what you are saying. Victoria has manipulated you somehow. She has always been jealous of our bond. Do not let her turn you against your own mother." Megan pulled her arm free with a sharp motion. "You grabbed my arm exactly like that when I tried to leave for Denver. You held me exactly like that when I wanted to see Ryan one last time after you ended things. You have been holding on to me my whole life, Mom." She stepped back, putting physical distance between herself and Patricia. "I am done." Patricia's tactics shifted instantly. The wounded mother disappeared, replaced by cold fury. "After everything I have done for you, I made you who you are. Without me, you would be nothing. You would be like her." She pointed at me with undisguised contempt. The room gasped collectively. In her desperation, Patricia had revealed exactly how she viewed her older daughter. Nothing. I was nothing to her. I felt the word land, felt it try to find purchase in the old wounds. But something had shifted tonight. The old injuries no longer had power over me. My mother's opinion of me was finally, fully exposed to the light, and in that exposure, it withered. "Yes," I said calmly, "she might end up like me, successful, independent, free. What a tragedy that would be." Several guests laughed. Not cruel laughter, but the release of unbearable tension. Patricia's face twisted with humiliation. The social standing she had spent decades cultivating was collapsing around her in real time. I looked at my sister, really looked at her. For the first time in decades, I saw the exhaustion beneath the perfect makeup, the years of performing the role of ideal daughter, the relationships sacrificed on the altar of our mother's approval, the dreams abandoned because Patricia deemed them unsuitable. Different prisons, same warden. "The house," I said, "the one they bought with my inheritance. I do not want you to lose your home because of what our parents did." Megan shook her head firmly. "I do not want it anymore, not knowing where the money came from. I will sell it and give you your share. Whatever it takes to make this right." "That is not what I want," I said. "Then what do you want?" I considered the question carefully before answering. "I want my sister back, the one I might have had if our parents had not spent 30 years turning us against each other." Megan's face crumpled. Fresh tears fell, but these were different from before. These were tears of relief, of release, of something long imprisoned finally breaking free. "I thought you hated me," she whispered. "Mom always said you resented me for being the favorite. She said you were jealous and bitter, and that was why you moved away. She said you wanted nothing to do with our family because you thought you were better than us." "I moved away because I could not breathe here," I said. "Not because of you. Because of them." The sisters stood facing each other. 30 years of manufactured division beginning to crack. 30 years of lies exposed in a single evening. Marcus appeared beside me and placed his hand on my shoulder. His presence grounded me, reminded me that I was not alone, that I had never been truly alone, even when my family made me feel that way. I had built a real family around myself, I just had not been able to see them clearly through the fog of the toxic one. Megan reached across the space between us. Her hand found mine. "I want to know you," she said. "The real you. Not the version Mom told me about. Not the villain in her stories. I want to know my actual sister." I felt tears threaten for the first time since my parents left the fireplace area. I blinked them back. I want that too. It was not forgiveness. Not yet. Too much had happened. Too many years had been poisoned. But it was a beginning. A door cracked open after being locked for decades. Harold had been silent throughout Megan's confession and our reconciliation. Now he stepped forward, positioning himself between his daughters and the guests. His voice carried the authority he believed he still possessed. "This is enough. Both of you have embarrassed this family beyond repair tonight. Victoria, you have destroyed any chance of reconciliation with your stunt. Megan, you have thrown away everything we built for you. Fine." He pulled out his phone, waving it like a weapon. "You want to play with money? Let us play. I am calling my lawyer right now. I will have both of you written out of everything. The family business, the house in Connecticut, the investments your mother and I spent 40 years building. You will get nothing from us. Not 1 cent. He began dialing, fingers jabbing at the screen. I smiled. It was not a kind smile. "Go ahead, Dad. Call your lawyer. But before you do, maybe you should hear what Marcus found when he started investigating your finances." Harold's finger froze over the screen. The color drained from his face. My husband had spent 2 years quietly gathering information. Not just about my parents' treatment of me, but about everything. The family business they claimed was thriving. The investments they constantly referenced. The financial empire they had lorded over their daughters for decades. Marcus had discovered it was all a lie, and Harold was about to learn that the daughter he called nothing was the only thing standing between him and complete financial ruin. I married Marcus for his kindness. I stayed married to him for his loyalty. But in that moment, watching him step forward to stand beside me, I discovered something else about my husband. He was capable of a patience and precision that terrified even me. Marcus positioned himself where the whole room could see him clearly. His hand found mine and squeezed once, a silent message of solidarity before he spoke. "Harold, before you call that lawyer, there is something you should know." He pulled out his phone and opened a folder, then turned the screen toward my father. "I have spent the last 2 years documenting everything your family has done to my wife. Every text message, every financial transaction, every lie you told her and every truth you hid." Harold's face shifted from defiance to uncertainty. "What are you talking about?" "I am talking about the real state of your finances. The ones you have been hiding from everyone, including your daughters." Marcus turned to me. His expression was tender but resolved. "I should have told you sooner, Victoria. But I needed to be certain. I needed proof that could not be denied or explained away." "Proof of what?" "That your parents are not just cruel, they are broke, and they have been using you to stay afloat for years." The words hung in the air. I stared at my husband, trying to process what he was saying. My parents had always presented themselves as comfortable, secure, successful, the family business, the investments, the retirement portfolio they mentioned at every holiday gathering. Marcus connected his phone to the television. The video I had prepared was finished, but a new presentation appeared on screen now, one I had never seen before. The title read, "The Rhodes Family Finances: The Truth Behind the Facade." "Let me take everyone back 2 years, Marcus said, addressing the room as much as me. To the night everything changed. The screen showed a date, a Tuesday evening. I remembered that night immediately. Victoria came home from work and called her mother. Patricia needed money again, $5,000 for what she claimed were unexpected medical bills. Victoria agreed to send it, as she always did. Marcus paused, his jaw tightening with remembered anger. Then Patricia said something before hanging up. "I suppose we should be grateful you are good for something." I remembered those words. They had cut deeper than usual that night, though I could not have explained why. Maybe it was the casualness of the cruelty. Maybe it was the exhaustion of years spent giving everything and receiving nothing in return. I found Victoria in our bathroom that night, Marcus continued. She was crying and trying to muffle the sound so she would not disturb me. My wife was hiding her tears in her own home because she had been trained her entire life to believe her pain was an inconvenience to others. The room was absolutely silent. I felt heat rising in my cheeks, the vulnerability of having this private moment exposed. But I also felt something else. Seen. Finally, completely seen. I held her until the tears stopped, Marcus said. Then I told her this had to end. She said they were her parents, that family does not end. I told her they were not acting like family. They were acting like parasites, and I was going to prove it. Marcus advanced to the next slide. Financial documents filled the screen. The next morning I started a spreadsheet. I tracked every dollar Victoria sent home. Every phone call that left her diminished. Every visit that ended with her questioning her own worth. But I also started investigating their claims about money, the family business, the investments, the comfortable retirement. He looked directly at Harold.